This is a book. A book can take many shapes and sizes. They can be as thick as a piece of armor on a battleship or as thin as, you know what, let's skip that part. But what books have in common is that generally they will contain something called a climax, where it's the most engaging part of the book. If you and your buddies were talking about anime, their first thought in their monkey brain would be the most exciting portions of the anime, as climaxes are the most memorable parts. You were taught at a young age that every story should follow a bell curve graph, that you should have an introduction followed by build-up or your rising action, then the climax, all the way down to your falling action, which is basically your tissue paper after you reach the climax, then finally your conclusion. When it comes to anime, I think it's safe to say that anime does whatever the flippin' heck it wants to do. No curse words here, it's a Christian server. If anime follows a bell curve, God of High School's climax would be at the beginning, Samurai Champloo's climax would be towards the very end, Interspecies Reviewers' climax would be in every episode, if you know what I mean. And any shonen anime with 2 or more seasons would look something like this, because let's be real, it's never gonna end. With all these options in the palm of your degenerate hand, all that leaves on the table is what you actually prefer. Do you enjoy anime with slow build-up, or do you want to feel like you snorted a whole jar of cocaine and wanted something exciting every episode? Inspector is an anime most certainly on the slower side. I binged the entire anime at 2 in the morning. Probably not the greatest idea, but with the remaining brain cells I had left, I can say it was pretty enjoyable for the most part. Let me preface this by saying that I do enjoy slow anime. A part of me enjoys the build-up more than the actual climax of the show. Well, if it's done correctly. You see, when it comes to slow anime where the climax is geared towards the end, you need to convince your audience why they should be watching your show in the first place. What I'm trying to say is that the first episode needs to have a hook that should be tied to the climax or end goal of the anime. In Samurai Champloo, they need to find the samurai that smells of sunflowers. In Megalobox, Joe wants to become stronger and fight Yuri. All these hooks happen in the first episode. Inspector has no hook. In the first episode, the two meet each other, they fight a monster, the male protagonist is a toxic guy, literally, and it just ends. There was no setting the stage for the rest of the season, which could be a huge turnoff for a majority of people who aren't patient, so they don't convince you that the show is worth watching until episode 2. Is what you think I was gonna say, but it's not. It's actually until episode 3 when we get to the first arc. Like seriously, who's gonna waste a full hour of their time just to get to the build-up that actually matters? I binged the entire anime at 2 in the morning. There's better videos out there describing the masterpiece that is Mob Psycho, but what I want to focus on is the first episode. I can say with full confidence that when it comes to Mob Psycho, there is no general hook of the show. It has something more special than a regular hook, but rather an implied hook. You know the phrase, actions speak louder than words? In the first episode, our main protagonist Mob doesn't say anything about wanting to become a stronger person. Rather, you can see him physically trying to overcome his weaknesses. You can tell that due to his ridiculous overpowered abilities? Yeah, let's go with that. Due to his overpowered abilities, he fell behind on schoolwork and athleticism. He's a guy who doesn't blend into normal life, but you can tell physically he's trying to make huge efforts to be seen as a capable guy without the use of his powers. I would consider this an anime where the climax is towards the end. Although there are plenty of fight scenes scattered around 2 seasons, if I were to describe the real climax of the entire show, it would be that Mob eventually begins to love himself as a person. All the fight scenes where it tests Mob's patience and mental capabilities were all rising actions needed in order for him to reach that conclusion, that despite his powers, deep down, he was always a normal person. And that's when it comes to first episode hooks, Mob is kinda special. When other anime generally takes the safe route and uses just fight scenes to grab your attention, Mob Psycho kinda diverges from this notion and uses fight scenes for more than just brain fuel. It's used internally for an overall bigger picture, and that's pretty damn cool.